Okay, today we're going to take notes on observing chemical reactions. This is chapter 5, section 1. So the first thing we're going to talk about is this type of thing occurs when you have a chemical change. And there are two main kinds of observable changes, and that's going to be a change in properties. So you might see a color change, the production of a gas, precipitate might be produced, or a change in energy. So that's going to be like you're going to notice a temperature change, whether it get colder or get warmer. So there are specific kinds of changes that you can look for during a chemical reaction, and these changes happen without your intervention. For instance, they get colder on their own. You don't have to put them in the refrigerator, or they have a color change on their own. You're not adding dye. It's just a change that happens on its own. And so some of the things you might notice is a gas can be produced. Like if you're baking bread, a gas is produced. You can smell it. You can see the bread rising due to the gas production. There might be a color change. Sometimes solids can appear. When you add two liquids together, a solid might appear in the solution. Or there could be other kinds of changes. Kind of a funny way to remember changes in chemical reactions is the word farts. If the reaction produces bubbles, if it fizzes, if there's an aroma, like did it produce a smell, like when baking bread you smell, did the reaction replace any of the original substances? Was there a temperature change? Did it get hotter or cold on its own? And definitely if there's a new substance, the production of a new substance is going to be definite evidence of a chemical change. So a precipitate is what we call a solid that appears during a chemical reaction. Okay, and the way I remember it is I use my knowledge of precipitate. My previous knowledge of that could be precipitation, like it kind of rains down, it falls down in the solution. So a precipitate is a solid that forms and then it just kind of rains down in the solution. And I'm going to show you a quick video of that in our next slide. So in this slide you can see there is a liquid here, and you can kind of see the tip of a straw. And you'll notice that during this reaction there's going to be a liquid that drops into the other liquid. And that's the production of the precipitate. There's little solid particles that form during that chemical reaction, and to me they kind of rain down in the solution. They kind of precipitate down in the solution. So this is a precipitate. It's a solid that forms during a chemical reaction. So what are some of the signs, or what is the sign of a chemical change? You're definitely going to see the production of a new substance, a substance that has broken its bonds, recreated new bonds, has created something new, and that is going to be that different from what we started with. So when one or more new substances are produced with properties that are different from what we started, then that's going to be the sign of a chemical change. In a chemical reaction, energy is either going to be absorbed or released, and not all the times is this something that's noticeable. So you might see energy getting absorbed, and this is energy being absorbed in a loaf of braided bread, or you might, and that bread is going to expand, or you're going to see that energy is going to be released, for instance, when burning wood or burning charcoal. A common indicator is going to be a change in temperature. So if you had a thermometer when you're burning wood, you're going to notice that the temperature is going to increase. If you have a thermometer when you baking soda and vinegar, you're going to notice that the temperature decreases when you mix the vinegar and baking soda together. So we have a name for this. When the reaction absorbs energy, we call that endothermic, because the root word here is thermic or thermal, which means heat, and endo means to go into. So the heat, the heat is going into the substance. And when we touch an endothermic reaction, if we're able to, if it's safe, then it's going to feel cold to the touch because all the energy is getting absorbed into that chemical reaction. So the energy is going to go into, it's going to be in, or the heat is going to go into the chemical reaction. When the energy is released, we call that exothermic, because exo means out and thermic means heat. So the heat is going out of the chemical reaction, and so the energy is going to be released. It's going to be exited out, and that's going to feel hot to the touch because all the energy is being released. When you have chemical bonds during a chemical reaction, the bonds are going to break or new bonds are going to form. So we don't have the compounds that make up wood. The wood, when we burn wood, the energy causes the bonds to break. You can smell an odor change. You can feel a temperature change. And the bonds that made up wood are now breaking and getting released into the atmosphere and changing, and then what you're left with is a brand new substance like ash.